What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. Of course, you hearing my voice first, you know what that means. It means that our fearless leader, Chris, is once again out and about. He is on assignment. He is handling things, doing business as a great man like himself does. And as always, he entrusts the ship of the Somewhat Sports Podcast to us, and we will be the best steers of this show possible. As always, Jurg joining you guys. And of course, the third of our usual triumvirate, but in today's episode, the second half of our dynamic duo, my guy Dame. Dame, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, besides the fact that I lost my AirPods literally like 3 minutes ago. But other than that, I'm good. Christmas is 2 days away. I'm excited. Excited to give gifts, excited to get gifts, excited to be off from work. So all in all, it's good vibes, good vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the gift givings, the spirit of the holidays, of course, a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas from us here. And of course, I will say that again at the end. But yeah, and what better way, Dame, than to celebrate the Christmas mood than to talk about COVID? because because funny enough, as I talked about last week, and the news that I was personally dreading last week, just because I feel for the players in this endeavor, officially broke. The NHL did announce. Well, actually, let me take a step back. Let me go a little bit of reverse order. So first, the NHL, they decided to make it so that there was only going to be games here for a little bit of just American teams versus each other and Canadian teams versus each other. So no cross-border games are going to occur. I believe that will be upheld in the hiatus. I'm not 100% certain. I don't think they'll uphold it for long because they can't do just Canada versus Canada forever. But at least for this little bit, it was upheld just before this quick hiatus, which was from the 22nd to the definitely the 25th. No Christmas Day games in the NHL will be. Actually, I don't think they usually play on Christmas, anyways. But play will resume for the NHL on Monday, December 27th. And it looks actually from what I'm seeing here that it will be cross-border games once again because the Ottawa Senators are coming into DC to take on the Capitals. So forget that portion of it. It was just for the coming days before this temporary hiatus. But of course, this was not the only COVID-related decision the NHL made. The league ultimately made the decision that they will not allow the players to go play in the Olympics this year. Tough decision, obviously, as I spoke about on the pod previously. Like for the players, this is always a big deal to be able to represent your country on the stage of the Winter Olympics. It's so important for these guys. It's something hockey, I think, to me, Dame. And I think you get a little bit of this with baseball too. It's like it means something to the players to be able to represent their countries in these international competitions, especially like the World Baseball Classic is that for baseball.
No,
So
absolutely, yeah,
yeah, so
definitely.
when you consider that at the end of the day, to me, I feel that this is a big blow for the players, obviously, and I feel for them, but it's all about safety. At the end of the day, and Bettman, I can criticize him, all day long, and I probably will, but I think him and the board and the owners made the right choice in this particular instance because there's so much unknown. We don't know about this new strand. It sucks for the players, obviously, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's right. And while I know a lot of people will point to this is probably more so what's right for league, and it technically is. That's the thing. I think this is also best for the players that they don't take that risk in terms of going to the Winter Olympics come February. I just think that's the smart decision at the end of the day. And plus, actually, like going back to the good for league part, the games that the NHL has missed, they'll definitely get a chance to uh, catch up on it because the league was going to take a 2 week break actually for the Winter Olympics. So with those 2 weeks, this gives them now a little bit of time, which they are starting right now, to be able to try to maneuver everything and see how many of these games they can make up during that what was supposed to be a 2 week hiatus. Now that of course all depend on television contracts, broadcasters being able to do it, arenas. That's a big deal when it comes to that. If arenas are going to be able to do that, because obviously 2 weeks of no NHL team. Obviously, in certain cities like New York and LA, they were going to have they have their NBA teams, but at the same time, like if the arenas weren't sold out, like to different for a different venue, different performance already, you got to see there's a lot of negotiating now that has to happen on how and when these games are going to get made up. But that is really it on the hockey side in terms of news like that. I feel that supersedes anything else in terms of the NHL world. I've been teasing this for a little bit. I do promise I will eventually get to some performance based NHL talk here to start off the pod. But I think with this big news that broke recently, I think that is a lot bigger of a deal when it comes to talking about the Chell, as us EA EA hockey players like to call it, good old NHL, uh, and the greatest sport in the world, at least in my opinion. But moving on from that and that quick NHL update, football. Of course, going from what is my favorite sport to the main sport here in America, king sport, as many people like to call it. The NFL, of course, dealing with their own COVID issues, but ho ho ho! If you thought the scum dug fooling around was something on a whole other level that last week with how many games had to be moved, and we literally, Dame, we just had football like a day or two ago, like the week just ended, and yet as we are recording this podcast tagline right there, as we are recording this on a Thursday tonight, Thursday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers, Tennessee Titans. The new week begins. It begins quickly. Week 16, now the third to last week of the season, lest you all forget that week 18 exists. But the third to last week of the season kicking off tonight in one of three games that, while usually I am a proponent of criticizing the Thursday games for the for the NFL, excuse me, NHL, hockey's still on the brain. But while I usually criticize the Thursday night football games of the NFL, they've actually been pretty good this season for the most part. And this
Last year's
one,
was like the best one.
oh yeah, probably best of all time.
Yeah.
And then not only is this Thursday game important, Dame, because it's two good teams, the Saturday games are important, but we're going to go one at a time here. So, Dame, I want to throw it to you first. Just the general importance here of the San Francisco 49ers and the Tennessee Titan games. The Tennessee Titans currently first in the AFC South at the time being at 9-5. San Francisco third in the NFC West at 8-6. But the playoff positioning and all that doesn't stop now. Tennessee is presently the third seed in the AFC, tied for the second seed with the Pats, but they lose that based off of, well, head to head, obviously. And San Francisco holding the sixth seed in the NFC, which is good for the second wild card spot. So, Dame, big game implications tonight here. And of course, the effect of the result is going to play out after the week is done. When that'll be considering how times are, who knows? But let's assume next Tuesday we'll get a bigger picture here. Just talk about how big this game is tonight, and if you want to select a team, who should be taking this game more seriously, San Fran or Tennessee?
I think Tennessee should be taking. I think both obviously should take it serious, and they will both take it serious. But who I think the game means more to and has bigger implication, I think it's the Titans, because the Titans did start off hot. They were like the number one seed in the AFC all by themselves. Derrick Henry was running wild, and then Derrick Henry went out. And AJ Brown went out, then Julio Jones went out, and like you saw the downfall of this team as a whole. And now you see them; they only have a game lead in their division. Like the Colts are coming. The Colts are a dangerous team. Like they're right on their back, and there's with 3 games to go. Anything can happen. They could lose that division lead in 2 weeks. Like it could be over, especially with the way the Colts are playing. As for the Niners, though, like I don't really think they have a shot at the division because of where the Rams and Cardinals are, and I just think the Rams and Cardinals are two better teams. Unlike with the Titans, I think the Colts are actually the better team there, and that's why they should have more pressure. But as for the Niners, I think it's just positioning in the wild card and kind of getting their team healthy and right going into the playoffs. Because personally, I just don't see them winning the division because I don't see the Rams falling off. Although the Cardinals have fallen off, they started off so hot, and the Niners start off kind of slow that I don't think there's ground to catch up there either. So for the Niners, it's just getting healthy, getting your offense right, getting your defense right, and kind of just staying hot going into the playoffs. Division positioning for them, I don't think really matters as much as it would for the Titans because the Titans have a real shot at losing their division. Whether they lose this game, next game, like they have a real shot at losing it. As for the Niners, like I said, kind of are just stuck in that wild card. It's just a matter of which wild card they're gonna have.
Right, and I think for both teams here, it's really a tale of two different stories where you're talking about one team being the division leader with Tennessee, that they presently have that monarchy, but then you have the 49ers who are fighting. And it's funny you mentioned it, Dame, because honestly, like I kind of forget off the top of my head, like you just look at the standings and it takes a second to realize, like, oh dang, like technically speaking, San Fran is right behind Arizona and the LA Rams, but we kind of have a feeling that it's all for naught for them, especially because they would need both those teams to lose out because they cannot beat them in terms of the divisional record. And I believe they lost both games to Arizona this season, and they only split with the Rams. So like, just not good. And the Rams already have more division wins than San Fran can have. So at the end of the day, like the division, I think is out of reach for San Francisco. It's all about playoff positioning for them. And as we kind of mentioned, they're the sixth seed at 8-6. While it may seem nice, this is the intriguing part here. The Minnesota Vikings and Philadelphia Eagles and New Orleans Saints are all 7-7, and the Washington Football Team and the Atlanta Falcons, yes, I'm actually mentioning the Falcons, I'm going to be nice, sort of, are both 6-8 here, and they technically have chances here to make the playoffs in what is going to be an intriguing playoff picture to look at here within these last couple weeks. Meanwhile, Tennessee, yet they do have a 9-5 record, and while some people might get concerned on what happens if they take a fall here this week, do remember they did beat the Colts both games this season. Now, I think if we played one of those games now, I think it'd be a different story. I think the Colts would win the game, but they have the advantage over the Indianapolis Colts via the idea of division record as of now. And even, let's say, Indianapolis and Tennessee and tied because Tennessee beat them in both games, there is the hold right there. So Tennessee does have a way more of an advantage here for San Fran. Tennessee has more of an advantage here if they would lose this game as opposed to San Francisco. And I think you bring up the great point there, Dame. It's like with San Francisco, this is the healthiest this team has been in quite a bit. We have seen this team when injured; they are not good, to say the least. The offense is sporadic at best, but we've seen what this team can do when healthy. Since Week 10, they've gone 5-1. Also, since Week 10, they got George Kittle back. Their defense is starting to get a little bit better. Yes, the running backs may be banged up, but we know Kyle Shanahan. He could put anyone there in the backfield, and he's going to get them 90 yards on 12 to 16 carries. That dude knows how to just scheme up run blocking. It runs in the Shanahan family, literally and figuratively. So, that being said, I definitely think this is an intriguing matchup to start with Thursday Night Football. And like you said, I think this is going to be a big time game. A.J. Brown, I believe, is playing tonight. From what I was hearing earlier in the day, the Titans had a deadline on making a decision with him, but I believe he is eligible to
Yeah,
play.
they activated him.
Yeah, he's activated, so he'll be in. What Ryan Tannehill and that team will try to do, if you're Tennessee, against this 49ers defense, who's played some pretty good football, here and there, whether it's, maybe not always holding opponents because, the Seahawks did drop 30 on them a couple weeks back, but, won a tight game against Cincinnati in overtime, shut down the Atlanta Falcons a week ago. This 49ers defense has had some moments here during the streak, and towards the beginning, they handled the Rams very, very much so. So I think at the end of the day, with San Francisco, this defense is a big thing. And so my next question to you, probably the last question with regards to this game, Dame, the Tennessee Titans, they're only 3-3 since the Derrick Henry injury, and we've seen very sporadic offense from them. We saw them play well against the Rams, and we saw them play well against the New Orleans Saints, right? But then they've lost to the Houston Texans. Oh boy. And then this game against Pittsburgh, they lost that game to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost it very ugly. It was one of those ugly games. I think was it 19-13 or something along those lines. Yeah, 19-13. It was the score of that game. So when you consider that and how inconsistent the offense is, they're going up against a really good defense. How big is this game? You talk about prepping yourself for the playoffs. How big of a playoff preparation game is this for Tennessee, especially for Ryan Tannehill here, Dame?
Man, it's big because the 49ers are the kind of team you're going to have to beat in the playoffs if you get there. Like, whether Derrick Henry comes back healthy or not, that's still to be determined. But you got to just assume he's not going to come back, because if you just assume he is going to come back and he doesn't, like, that's just going to mess up your entire, like, philosophy and offense. So they just got to play as if he's not coming back, and these are the teams you're going to see in the playoffs. Like, say you run into the Colts in the playoffs, if you win the division, you play the Colts in a wild card, or the other way around. Like, the Colts are very similar to the 49ers. They run the ball and they play great defense, and their quarterback just game manages the game. And same with the Patriots. Like, there's a lot of teams that play like the Niners in the playoffs, and those are tough matchups because they can run the ball, keep the ball away from you, and they play really good defense. So for the Titans, this is going to be a big test to see how they play against a team like the Niners, who is a playoff caliber team that they're going to see in their own conference in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Tennessee, I think you bring up the best point here. And it's all about the fact that, yes, even though you're going to get Derrick Henry back, like, you can't just rely on him because, I mean, as we saw, he can get hurt now. I think we've also seen in spurts here, teams are able to figure out, like, okay, if they're just going to run with Derrick Henry, if we can find a way to neutralize him, and that's a big if because Derrick Henry is just so good. But some teams have the ability to do that with stout run defense, and if they can at least slightly slow down Derrick Henry, that doesn't do Tennessee any favors because Ryan Tannehill is just he's not an elite quarterback at all, and he's sometimes great, but at the end of the day, he's just good. He's just Ryan Tannehill, as I like to call it, and at the end of the day, you need a little bit more than just Ryan Tannehill to get you those big time wins, and I think this is a big time game here. I think, like, I think, Dane, you can agree. I hate, like, always treating regular season games and always trying to amp it up as sports medias want to do. But I do think this is a big deal game here for Ryan Tannehill because like if Tennessee loses this game here, like you can't have any confidence that the Titans are going to do anything in the playoffs, even with Derrick Henry back.
Absolutely. Ryan Tannehill has to prove himself. Like he did, he had a great season coming in his first season with the Titans. The new coach with Derrick Henry, he got his contract, but now you got to prove in the playoffs. Now you proved your starting quarterback. That's great. You got your money. That's great. But now you got to prove you could beat the big teams in the big on the biggest stage.
Absolutely, and that's something that Dolphins fans especially have been asking of Tannehill for a long time, and they can tell you it's a struggle to say the least. But moving on from that, of course, that was the Thursday night football game, and we have two games on Saturday because, of course, the NFL loves doing this late season stuff. But on paper, I think we got some really good games here, Dame. So I'm going to start off with this one. I'm going to throw it straight to you. The Cleveland Browns versus the Green Bay Packers here. The 7-7 Browns in contention in the AFC wildcard picture. In the time being, if we were to update it, so the Browns are actually, if this thing would go here, they are technically speaking the 12th seed at this moment. They're behind the Dolphins, the Vegas Raiders, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, there's going to be some pretty good teams here that miss out on the playoffs in the AFC. The Browns, of course, find themselves at 7-7. The opposing Green Bay Packers, 11-3, first team to actually clinch the playoffs this year, and very good chance that they could go for home field advantage in the NFC, and that would be big, I think, this season in particular for Green Bay. But moving on from that, the Browns played a very tight and very close game against the Vegas Raiders, despite missing God knows how many players. I thought at one point, Dame, I saw you playing quarterback for the Browns. I know it was Nick Mullins, but I think you could have done a better job there. But in the
Probably
end,
you're right.
they lose on what was a game-winning field goal for the Vegas Raiders by Gabriel Carlson. Um, go into this game, Dame. What are like the things you're looking at here? The Browns, they fought so hard in that Raiders game. It sucked they had to lose that way. What are the chances that they could have a repeat performance of that they could play that well against Green Bay?
It's gonna be extremely tough because the Raiders they didn't know what they were preparing for with all these COVID things, and they were already like frustrated that their game had to be moved. Like you kind of it throws everything off their like scale and stuff. So I don't really take much into that Browns like keeping it competitive, but now they're facing a whole different demon. They're not facing the Oakland Raiders who have been absolutely awful the past few games, ever since they started off pretty hot. They're facing the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Like that's the best team arguably in the league right now. And arguably they have the back-to-back MVP right now in Aaron Rodgers as well. So it's a whole different beast that they're playing. And obviously all these guys that had COVID last week and couldn't play, like this isn't just a rest. They didn't have like a rest week. They had COVID. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't be in the building. They couldn't run practices. Like they couldn't do anything. So coming back off that, it's gonna be tough for them to get straight into their offensive game plan, defensive game plan, and be right on their game from the start because that's what they're going to need to do if they want to beat the Green Bay Packers, who are, like I said, one of the best teams in the league. I personally think the Packers are going to win this game easily. I never liked the Browns, regardless, fully healthy or not. Like they just weren't a good team with Baker at quarterback, fully healthy or not. He's just not it. This team is kind of overrated. Myles Garrett is beast. He's the defensive player of the year, but him by himself, I don't think is going to be enough to stop this Green Bay Packer offense. And the Green Bay Packer defense has arguably been one of the best defenses in the league this year. And I think they're gonna have a field day with Baker Mayfield in that Cleveland Brown offense. So I don't really see this game being close, but the Browns really do need it. Like they should pull out all the troops, everything they need to win this game because if they don't, it's gonna look really tough for them to make the playoffs or win the division at all.
Right, and I think just making the playoffs in general, I think with a loss here, you almost kind of have to take them out of it at that point because, like we said, it is the idea that this team it's 7-7 with how compact, with how tight the AFC playoff picture is. They're tied with the Dolphins, the Raiders, those teams and those teams at this point are only fighting for wild card spots. Like yes, the Browns could realistically still get the division here, but I think like with all the COVID stuff that's been happening, like you said, it's really difficult to see them pulling it off. And at the end of the day, like you say yourself, you're going up against Green Bay now. You're going up against Aaron frickin' Rodgers, who look at the streak this guy's been on. Now 30 passing touchdowns on the season, only 4 interceptions, which is absolutely wild when you consider what happened in Week 1 when he threw 2 against the Saints. He's only thrown 2 interceptions since. His last interception came in Week 10 against the Seattle Seahawks. that game was the game where he came back from being on COVID protocol. So when you actually think about it here, Dame, the last time that Aaron Rodgers threw a proper interception that wasn't like coming off of COVID or anything was that overtime win against the Cincinnati Bengals back in October, like October 10th. This dude has gone 2 straight months. I know technically the Seattle game exists, but this dude has gone 2 straight months of essentially not throwing an interception when he's been 100%. And he's still not even 100% because he's had some of the toe issues. So just Rodgers is on a different level. Green Bay, in and of itself, like the defense has had some good performances here. Um, Intriguing to see if they'll be able to do it in the playoffs, but of course that's a story for playoff time in and of itself. I'm with you, in the somewhat sports predictions universe, which those will be put on the Instagram page soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, holiday cheer and seeing our predictions and who will win this week. I'm not gonna lie, I actually forgot who won last week, but
And me and Chris tied.
okay. Really, or was that? Oh, no, semantics. But the Cleveland Browns, yes, while they are getting some players back, obviously as people are being activated from protocol, I think this is just too overwhelming of an offense for them to have to deal with. And yeah, like you said yourself, Dame, like Miles Garrett's amazing. That defense has some players, but there's only so much grit and determination that you can do when it comes to facing the Green Bay Packers, who are like we said here, fighting for the first seed in the NFC, and I think that's such a big deal for them. I think this year in particular, I think the less you need to travel away, the better. Honestly, for a team, and I think the Packers are well within position for themselves here as they move into the final weeks of the season. They take on the Minnesota Vikings one more time, and then they finish off against the Detroit Lions. And depending on how these next 2 weeks go, they might actually just rest guys in that Detroit game. So I think the Packers are really going to go full throttle here, whereas the Cleveland Browns, of course, they have to do their best here. And after this game, it's the Steelers next week, and then it is a showdown against Cincinnati in Week 18. What implications that game could have, of course, only time will tell. But I think we've said our piece about this game. So, of course, unless actually, do you want to add any final notes about this game, Dame, or we can move
No,
on?
I just think it's gonna be a blowout.
Mm, I mean, I don't blame you unless because Nick Chubb's playing in this game, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
fully. I mean, maybe Nick Chubb. The Packers probably the weakness of the Packers defense throughout the last couple of years has been the run. Maybe if Nick Chubb could have some early possessions, it could keep it close early on. But you're going to need the quarterback play to step up, and I don't think we can really say that about the Cleveland Browns this season at all. So yeah, moving on from that, the final game that we're going to talk to in detail, because actually at the end of this we are going to. I'm just going to do a brief run through of what other important games there are this week. But this is the last game on Saturday, the night game. The Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals. Dame, this is a big time game. I want to throw it to you because I think of these 3 games, this one has the potential to be pretty electric if you ask me. Cardinals, Colts, what are your thoughts going into this one, Dame?
Oh, this is gonna be a one hell of a game. I don't know if it's on Fox or CBS for us to watch, but man, oh man, this is gonna be a great one. Obviously, the Cardinals start off 7-0, best team in the league, but they've really slowed down the past few weeks. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins being out hurts a lot. I know James Conner's banged up right now. Kyler Murray's just been banged up all season, but the Cardinals are still one of the best teams in the league, one way or another. Like their offense is dynamic. They use everybody on that offense. Their defense is pretty good as well, but now you have the Colts who are really surging. I think they started 1-5 now, and now they're only a game out of the division. Jonathan Taylor arguably is a league MVP as well. He's definitely the best running back in the league. He's going to break the touchdown record, yards record. He's been an absolute animal. He's been carrying this team all season long. Um, so this is going to be one hell of a game. It was really hard for me to pick this game, but just based off how hot the Colts are and how they can keep the ball away from that Kyler Murray ran offense with Jonathan Taylor just grinding it out, 30 carries a game, 35 carries a game, just killing it. And that defense has been taking away the ball almost every single game from the opposing offense. Like no matter who they're putting in front of them, like they're just getting turnover after turnover. Darius Leonard, I think he has like 12 forced turnovers this year from fumbles to picks. Like he's been an absolute beast, and that overall that defense has been absolutely amazing. And Carson Wentz just isn't doing too much. He's doing what he needs to do for the team to win ball games, and that's really all they need to do because of how that offense is structured. Their structure is to get Jonathan Taylor the ball as much as possible, and then you make the short intermediate throws that Carson Wentz makes, and once in a while you throw a deep bomb that's opened up because of the run game. And Carson Wentz has been hitting hitting them all and needing to do what he needs to do. So I'm gonna leave him with the Colts in this game because, like I said, I think they're gonna keep the ball away from the Cardinals' offense, who's been kind of struggling lately, and I think that defense it will take away the ball one way or another from Cardinals' offense, and I think that'll be enough for the Colts to win this one. I do think it's gonna be a close one, and I think it'll go either way. I don't think it's gonna be super low scoring. I don't think it's gonna be a big shootout, but something like a 24-20 game, I have the Colts winning.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you on that one because I think I believe myself also have the Colts winning in this one because I mean we talked about with Tennessee like prepping for the playoffs game. I think potentially this is the team to watch out for in the playoffs this year. I think with how Jonathan Taylor has run the ball this season, an offensive player of the year candidate, and some saying an MVP candidate, well, many are having that discussion, very heated debate. I think, he's put together an amazing season for himself here in year two. Funny enough, a lot of people forget that, but this is just year two for him. That's kind of scary. Well, actually, running back bodies and what happens in that sport. Positives only. Positives only. With the amazing season that Jonathan Taylor has had, with how he's helped lift this Indianapolis offense, they definitely have a chance against Arizona here because, and kind of like what you said, Dave, I think we're starting to see a little bit of how you can stop Kyler Murray and this Cardinals team, and it's being able to have a defense that can absolutely just hound them. And this Colts team can do that. I think at two of the three levels you have guys. I think DeForest Buckner can really make a difference here, and Darius Leonard, like you said, like I would not be surprised if this game if Buckner gets a sack or two and Darius Leonard picks off Kyler Murray because like those are two of the premier defensive players in the game, and Indianapolis has two of them on one team. That's special, and the the LA Rams, the Cardinals division rival, and also a team that's tied for them at the top of the standings. Like they also have two premier defensive players, technically three actually with Von Miller when you consider it. I think it takes strong, like real strong defense, well coached defense to neutralize this Cardinals team as much as you can. Like you said, I think DeAndre Hopkins is just ultimately what's going to be a big difference maker these last couple of weeks for Arizona, which kind of sucks because Kyler Murray's been absolutely electric this season, and you can't take it away from him because Kyler Murray has been great consistently throughout the year. But I think we're starting to see here, Dame, and I'll throw it back to you at this point. Like injuries, man, they make such a massive difference here late in the season. I think the NFL, out of every single sport, maybe baseball because the season's so long, you could argue it, but the NFL is about actually no, really all sports when you think about it. It's about attrition. It's a battle of attrition and who can survive to the end with as many bodies as they can at the end with their best players possible still available at the end and still able to go for it. And I think here we're starting to see wear and tear on Arizona because Kyler Murray's still kind of getting over the injuries. Like a lot of people forget, he was injured very recently. DeAndre Hopkins now out for the regular season. That team isn't 100% here. And now you're facing the surging Colts team who they're getting it together. They're looking good. They're looking, cohesive, well coached. I think this is just like, I think this is bad luck here for the Cardinals. So I kind of want to throw it to you from both teams' perspective, Dame. How big do you think the injuries are going to affect the Cardinals down the stretch? And how big will the injuries help Indianapolis here? Because injury luck is finally in their favor, whereas for other teams like Tennessee, Cleveland, and other teams that they're facing for the wild card hunt, like the Colts are probably the healthiest team in the wild card picture. Them and the Chargers remaining here in the AFC.
Yeah, man. I mean, for the Colts, as long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy and upright, like they're just gonna be a dangerous team one way or another. As for the Cardinals, though, like DeAndre Hopkins is an extremely big loss. Like he wasn't having that kind of season that he had last year or he had on the Texans, but he takes so much pressure off of these other receivers that the Cardinals have. Like that offense isn't just based off let's throw DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins number one option. Hopkins this, Hopkins that. Like they spread the ball out to everybody and keep everybody an option, and that's why it's so dangerous. But the reason they're able to do that is because the defense focuses so much on the guy like DeAndre Hopkins by putting a corner on him and putting a safety over the top to look over him. Like that's what helps Kyler Murray get these other guys open, and that's what keeps him so dangerous because you never know what they're going to throw the ball. But now that DeAndre Hopkins is back, out for the rest of the regular season at least, and who knows for the playoffs, but now that safety doesn't have to come over the top of DeAndre Hopkins and help double. Like they can play a normal defense and keep everybody on the entire offense equally to limit their options as much as possible. So I think that really hurts the Cardinals there. But yeah, injuries, of course, this late in the season are always a big factor. Like you see the Bucks getting hurt by a lot now, but the healthiest team is always the most dangerous team when it comes to the playoffs. So that's why the Colts, I think, are also another reason they're so dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the playoffs, it comes down to health, I think, and defense. And the Colts are looking good on both ends, and it doesn't hurt to have that 2,000 yard potential rusher in Jonathan Taylor. If he reaches that, we'll see. He's still need a couple big performances, but I don't think it's necessarily completely out of reach. Remember, Derrick Henry had to have a 200-yard game at the end of last regular season to reach 2,000. So anything is possible, as they always say. Um, so that just about wraps up our coverage of the primetime games here early in week 16. But I will just briefly, very briefly, go over some of the other big games that are happening this upcoming weekend, just to give a lay of the land and really put into perspective how I feel like we've said this the last couple of regular seasons, Dave, but I think this regular season in particular, a lot of these games mean a lot here late in the season. So going into Sunday, some of the big time games in the 1 o'clock hour, and hard to believe some of these games are 1 o'clock. Just I don't know if they could flex it. I wish they could flex it at least when it comes to the Monday night game. But it is Ravens Bengals in the 1 o'clock hour, the Rams and Vikings, and the Bills and Patriots are all really really big time games to really watch out for with all those teams. A little bit overshadowed, but still kind of important. The Eagles and Giants, just because the Eagles are technically in playoff contention. I think this is a big deal for that team, for Jalen Hurts, considering all the talk that's been about him and how his time has gone so far in Philly. I think the young guy is doing some good things, and Philly's playing some good all around team ball. I think that's another thing, like being relatively healthy this time of year compared to most. That does the 1 o'clock hour. And the 4 o'clock hour, it is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Steelers. The Steelers fighting to maintain good wild card positioning best they can. The Chiefs trying to see if they could clinch. Pretty sure they could clinch a playoff spot if they win this. I'm almost certain, because Vegas is in the playoff picture, and if Kansas City were to win, they would have enough wins. I believe the Chiefs clinch the playoffs with the win here, or at least one other team losing. So there's that game, and also in that hour is Broncos Raiders. Two 7-7 teams technically in the playoff hunt. Who wins that, we'll see. And then of course Sunday Night Football, Cowboys Washington. This is essentially for the NFC East if you're Dallas, and then for Washington, this is about maintaining what semblance of playoff positioning that they can have while they still have it. And then technically speaking, even though I wish this game could get flexed, probably won't though. Sadly, I actually definitely can't, because it's a ESPN property game. Monday Night Football, the Dolphins and Saints, technically two teams in the playoff pictures in their respective conferences. The Dolphins have been wild here. Like, they've won 6 straight, I believe, and they have been the hottest team, technically speaking, in the league when you go by win streak. Um, could they beat the Saints? Good chance, considering I saw Ian Book is going to be starting for the Saints, and what a testament to
Yikes.
what a testament to Sean Payton's coaching ability if he can make Ian Book look really good. That's all I got to say there. But those are like the main games. Dame, I think it's a good slate of games here for this upcoming weekend. I know we talked about these main three, but any of these games that you're particularly looking forward to, or you think people should keep an eye on?
Um, Not really. We kind of went over all these games I'm really interested in. The Jets Jaguars personally is gonna be a big game for me, just based off draft position. The Jets are third right now, and the Jaguars I think are first or second. But like, if the Jaguars beat the Jets, like I think they would flip flop or something like that. So personally, to me, it's a big game. Not based off who the Jets actually want. Me wanting the Jets to win, like it's probably better for them to lose. As long as Zach Wilson has 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they lose, like I'm gonna be all right. Like, Robert Sala's out with COVID. I never liked the signing of Robert Sala, so I think it's gonna be do great things for Zach Wilson. But yeah. Other than that, though, the Ravens Bengals obviously is good. I think they're playing for the division, right? So that's gonna be a big game. Who knows if who knows if Lamar Jackson's gonna play? He hasn't practiced again today, so
Oof,
that's
that's.
gonna
I mean,
be
Tyler Huntley played well, but
how to yeah.
you
Tyler
want Lamar
Huntley,
here.
this might be an audition for him to be a starting QB for another team next year. Like he's played really well. He's probably the best backup in the league right now, and if he keeps playing like this, like he's gonna be a starter somewhere next year, especially with how weak this draft class is. But yeah, I mean, couple good games. The Chiefs Steelers, that's gonna be pretty good as well, because I think if the Steelers win, it's kind of like the Brown situation. Like if they don't win against this great team, like it just sucks. Like all their playoff hopes are over. Well, it doesn't suck because I don't like the Steelers either, but for them, it sucks. But yeah.
I mean, how dare I disrespect this amazing game? This is a tank bowl matchup. So how dare I? I think it's the biggest game of the weekend: Jets and Jaguars. I know you already gave your take here, Dame, but I just want to ask. So Jets Jags, what like? Do you feel is this a vindication game for you? Like if the Jets do end up winning this game, I know you want them to lose for better draft position, but if the Jets do win this game, like kind of like I believe Chris said this last week when we had our Urban Meyer discussion, which please, please, if you haven't listened to that, go and hear our talk about that. Mainly, certain one of us had a lot to say about Urban Meyer. I wonder who. Smirking behind the camera is what I do. But like, is this not a vindication game for you because of all the trash talk people said about how like, oh, Trevor Lawrence hopefully avoids the Jets and all that stuff? Like there's some vindication here if you win this game, Dame. Like, oh, the Jags are so much better than us, but look at that.
Oh, absolutely. Like low key, like not gonna lie, it's kind of a win-win for me. Like if they win, Zach Wilson beats Trevor Lawrence, and like it's whole this thing. Oh, Trevor Lawrence should avoid the Jets. I don't know. Well, look, we had the second pick. We had a second choice of a quarterback, and we still beat them. Your head coach got fired mid-season because he wants to get lap dances from like 25-year-olds. And here we are with our second overall pick with all these guys on COVID, all these guys injured, and we still took you guys down. But then if we lose, like we could just say, we tanked it. We wanted a better draft pick. So really, who won at the end of the day? But it's kind of win-win for me at the end of the day. But me personally, I'd go for the draft pick. But I know that's not how the players play. So one way or another, it's a win-win.
There was no reason for Urban Meyer to catch more shrapnel right there, but I very much appreciate that you threw that one out there, Dame. Very, very good. Okay, moving on from all our NFL talk, and we reached the last topic here on the rundown. Yes, we have a rundown on this show. Um, the NBA. I think of all the sports that's always talked about when it comes to COVID. NBA is always well. I feel like it's one of the big ones because, of course, the NBA, along with the NHL, had the bubble and they went through the bubble and then they went through last season. They were able to get through last season. Yada yada yada. Champions, are they real or not? Yes, they are. Get over yourselves. But nonetheless, this season, I think it really started with the NBA too here within the last week and a half or so, Dame, with all the uh, players entering protocol. Of course, the NHL and the NFL have struggled with it, but I think the NBA was like the first one. It felt like to get a lot of reports about this kind of stuff, and more COVID protocol news coming out. Actually, funny enough, while we are recording this, I actually just saw a notification saying Bradley Beal was getting put into COVID protocol. So that's nice for Washington. But we could give our thoughts on that. But I want to throw it to you here, Dame, because a certain team that plays in New York is getting some heavy hitters back here. The Brooklyn Nets activated James Harden from COVID protocol, and because technically speaking, he hasn't been playing the entire season and could get back earlier, Kyrie Irving coming off a I was about to say COVID protocol here for the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, for Brooklyn, who they've had some good performances this season, being one of the top teams in the East as expected. Really, with just KD and Harden, and now even recently with just KD here, getting their guys back. Now, Kyrie, of course, only allowed to play home games. No, excuse me, only allowed to play away games. I confuse Brooklyn sometimes with another team, but can only play on the road. Can't play the home games, and technically speaking, he can't play in Canada either. Though I'm trying to remember if there's any away Raptors games for the Nets recently or like in the future. But irregardless, the Nets, technically speaking, Dame, they have their big three back together in the most like apocalyptic way possible. All things considered in 2021, but then again, with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, I think apocalyptic ways are the only style that they can do it. So, Dame, long-winded introduction aside, what do you make of the Nets getting their team back here from COVID protocol, especially these two guys, and like just what has your reaction been to like the NBA news in particular? We mainly talked about it with the NFL. Like, what's been your reaction to the NBA and their COVID issues so far?
The COVID issues just honestly, it sucks. Like, most of the league is vaccinated in both leagues, especially the NBA, and it just kind of sucks, especially since they went through that bubble thing and all that. And I know they said they're not going to another bubble, and I hope they don't. Hope they don't cancel any games. But I know they've talked about how they're not going to really test vaccinated asymptomatic players. And honestly, that's just it's a whole different kind of conversation that we're not going to have here on this sports podcast. But I think that's the best way to go because it seems like this is something we're gonna have to live with. And if you're asymptomatic, like you just should be able to play one way or another because it's not really affecting you. And whoever's not vaxxed, like that's a risk you're taking. So that's on you. But as for the league, like it's obviously still going to get worse in my opinion with Christmas and New Year's coming around. Like I think January is going to be probably a lot worse than December is. So the NBA kind of has to brace for that. But when we come to the Nets, specifically Kyrie Irving and the Nets, actually, I think the Nets. This is absolutely an embarrassment for the Nets to bring back Kyrie as a part-time player. Like just because your team is dealing with COVID, like so is everyone else. And what do you think bringing Kyrie back for away games is going to do for your team? You think that's going to be good? That one game they have and one game they don't. Like how's that going to work for your chemistry? How's that going to work when you come into the playoffs? Like when you have to face a Philadelphia, where who knows what the restrictions going to be in Philadelphia when the if this keeps getting worse. Like Philadelphia might put a vaccine mandate for players and stuff to come into that arena, and then he's not going to be playing that series at all. Then you're going to have him for another series. Like, how's that really going to benefit that team at all? Like, I just don't think it is. For sure, for the maybe first 2 weeks, you'll have that kind of spark that Kyrie Irving's there for your away games and maybe it'll help you. But by the time he's actually eligible to play with the protocols that he's in now, I think they said like mid January would be like the first game he's even eligible to play. Like, how does that help you at all? KD and Harden will be back by then. Like, you're not really gonna need him, and then you're just gonna have him one game here, one game there. Like, that's gonna mess up your whole offensive flow. That's gonna mess up your team chemistry because he's not even gonna be able to travel with the team and be inside the arena during the game. It's not like you can watch from the bench. You can't be in the arena at all during home games. So I just think it's absolute embarrassment for the Nets and like Kyrie, like just get vax, bro. Like I don't understand. Like he said he wants to get this plant based vaccine. Like man, shut up. Like just go get the vaccine. If you don't trust anything that's going in your body, then don't say you're gonna go get the plant based vaccine or whatever the case may be. Like if you don't want to play basketball, don't play basketball. Don't come here and be a part time player and not only tease your team by making I think it's gonna hurt the team, like I said, but tease your fan base because you're not gonna be able to play in front of the home fans who you signed there for, and you talk about how you love Brooklyn and Brooklyn this do or die or whatever it is, like the case may be, but he's not going to be able to play in front of those fans. Instead, he'll be playing away games and not even all away games because I know LA has a mandate, San Francisco has a mandate, so I know they're on the Western Conference, but like those are games that he's still going to have to miss. And like I said, vaccine mandate is just going to get tougher and tougher as cases go up and cities get hit harder. So it's going to be less and less games that Kyrie Irving can play. So overall, I think it's an embarrassment for the Nets organization to bring him in as a part-time player. They're panicking like they don't have enough to compete. Like they were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Like, what do you need Kyrie Irving for? I don't get it. Like James Harden and KD were doing just fine. They just got hit with COVID. Like it's gonna be a 2-3 week thing, and you'll be right back there. Like with number one seed, and you have the arguably the best player in the world, and Kevin Durant, and now you're panicking also because James Harden isn't the player that he used to be in Houston because there's no rule. Like stop trying to get fouled and actually go score the ball. You're one of the most talented offensive players in NBA history. Like you don't need foul calls to be great. Go actually try to score the ball and you'll be fine. You won't need to bring in Kyrie Irving to just play away games and ruin your whole entire team philosophy and team chemistry. So, like I said, embarrassing for the Nets organization. It just looks bad on Kyrie even worse that he's willing to do this and not willing to take the vaccine.
I think this stretch here is going to be what defines the Brooklyn Nets. I think with Kyrie only being, like everyone's been joking here, a part-time player. But he really is that. He is only a part-time player because he can only play away games. And like you said, Dame, he can't even play every single away game because some of the states mandate it. Now, I think it all depends on if the Nets have played their away games against like the California teams and against Toronto and all that. But at the end of the day here, like this I think defines the Nets big three. How they're going to go through this, what they're going to become, and what we're going to see them be during this time here that they're going to essentially have all three of them available, albeit only for half the potential games here. But I think this is big, and I think this is ultimately going to decide how we grade this Nets team, looking back at it. And I think to your point is just like Kyrie's been so frustrating. I think it always mars people's judgment. This is an insanely talented team. Like even some of the role players, like we're seeing some of these young guys step up. Cam Thomas has gotten a little bit of time here. Uh, I think a lot of people realize like the Nets guard rotation. They got some pretty good guards coming off the bench. I think if you ask me, and like it'd be nice to be able to have Harden and Kyrie both available, but they don't. Like at least not for every game. Like they just missed Harden. And I just think, like we've talked about, and like I said, I think this is just a myriad of just mismanagement here throughout all the leagues. And I think with the NBA in particular, like how they're going to handle the COVID protocols, like it's a wait and see type deal. Like obviously with the vaccine and all that stuff, and having to deal with these guys, it's like it's a league issue, but I don't think it can be ignored from the sense that now, like they're literally going to have a part-time player, and I think that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially with Kyrie. And Kyrie's done himself no favor in the public. I know, like, a lot of people try to defend him. We're not going to get too much into it because, like you said, we predominantly talk about sports, but just the Kyrie situation in and of itself is just like highly frustrating, to say the least. But I think for the Nets, obviously they have the number one seed. I think early on they're trying to build up a lead here for the number one seed because the Bucks aren't too far behind them, and the Bucks haven't been 100% this season either. The Chicago Bulls are not too far behind them. They recently lost Zach LaVine a little bit ago to COVID protocol. I believe he's back or going to come back soon. I forget exactly which, but I know like it's within that timeline. Um, just I think from if we just look at it from a pure strategic perspective, and I hate to do that because like obviously with the virus and everything, it requires more real life thinking. But I think the Nets are doing this strictly to start to build some distance for the first seed. Like as much as there's still, we always say plenty of season to go, we're slowly, very slowly, Dame, approaching the halfway point. We're reaching the halfway point. And I think here, I think that's what the Nets are doing. I think they're trying to go for some early knockouts if we're to equate it to a boxing fight. I think they're going for some early big hits here to try to build up a lead for the first seed. And I think this season in particular, I think, and all depends on where we'll be in the world, right, by April and May. But I think Brooklyn wants to have home court advantage in the East. Like that's all this is telling me. And for them to bring back Kyrie, as annoying as he is, and trust me, he is annoying. This isn't a pro Kyrie podcast if you've been a long time listener, but I think that's what I see Brooklyn doing here, and I just believe that they're going from the pure basketball perspective of this, and maybe that'll help them in the long term when it comes to all that. Who knows? But that's kind of it when it comes to Kyrie and all that. I mean, if we want to talk about a little bit more, obviously Bradley Beal and him entering COVID protocols, how that is going to affect the Washington Wizards. You know, they've been a pretty decent team to start and fighting for a playoff spot, at least a play-in spot at the minimum. But they've been pretty good throughout stretches early on in the season. They slowed down quite a bit recently. I think missing him is obviously going to be a big blow to that team because they need their number one guy. I know he's not scoring to the same clip as before, but Bradley Beal helps your team, especially that team, and I think losing him is big. But let's talk about the other. Like, let's talk about a team that's really been snake bitten here, Dame, and this could kind of be like the final point here. The Lakers, a lot of, I mean, injuries in general, but I think COVID as well hit quite a few guys in the lineup recently. And the Lakers haven't been 100%. Like, is it not a testament to how crazy this season is that the Lakers, like, we know they have their deficiencies, but like they're 16-16. I believe this was I saw the stat earlier today at work that this is the latest into a season a LeBron James team has ever been to be at 500 or below. So, like, how brutal has COVID been from the Lakers' perspective and just like the league in general here?
Man, the Lakers' problems stem way more further than just COVID. Like COVID has hit the role players, but had LeBron missed one game off like a false positive test, so he didn't really get affected by COVID. Westbrook, I think he missed 1 or 2 games as well. But he's been more of a problem than he's been a solution. And Anthony Davis, just don't get me started on him. He gets me so frustrated how great he can be, and he just doesn't want to be. And he's just got a knee injury. I think now he's out for like 6 weeks, and so he hasn't really been affected by COVID. Just the role players have, but I just don't think the Lakers' problems can be defined by COVID. I don't think they can use that excuse because their star players haven't been playing the way they need to be. Actually, let me be honest. Like LeBron has been playing amazing. He's just been hurt with the abdominal injury. That's what really he missed a lot of time with that. But overall, like from Westbrook and AD, like they just haven't been playing to the level they should be playing, especially Anthony Davis. And COVID has nothing to do with that. Like they just should have been playing a lot better, and the Lakers just can't use COVID as an excuse, in my opinion.
That's true. That's true. I think that's fair. I think obviously their defensive deficiencies, the age of the roster. I think it's all been said, but I just think it's worth noting because I'm pretty sure, like at least from recollection, like the Lakers were mentioned as a team that's been dealing with some issues. They've had to play the most players out of any team so far this season, which is kind of wild, all things considered. And I don't think they'll be alone in that. I think they're going to be starting. Other teams are going to be starting other players here very soon, but no, I think it's just something worth bringing up here because I think like we kind of spoke about with the NFL, like I think the NBA, it's a game of attrition. And I think we normally talk about that to the end, but I think this point of the season, as we slowly approach the midway point, I think COVID is a big deal here, and I think you miss a guy here like Luka, for example. He's going to be in COVID protocol now, and he's going to miss this game with the Bucks for with Giannis. I think that's a massive deal here, all things considered, and what that means for the Mavericks. That he's going to miss this game and a couple other games, and just in general, like guys missing time is never good, but especially for COVID and being in COVID protocol, like that just. I think kind of like what you said, like helping or hurting a team. Like I think to have so many guys in and out like that, that's not something easy to come back from, Dame. It's really not. No, I think that kind of just wraps up at least anything with the NBA. Any last moment notes? I mean, I know I just kind of threw it out there at the last second, but yeah, Luca missing the Bucks game.
Yeah, I just hope all this COVID stuff kind of dies down. Like, I know it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna get worse. It definitely will this holiday season. But man, when it was slowing down and stuff, you could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sports are going great. Everything is going great. So I hope nothing gets shut down. I hope nothing in life gets shut down. I hope sports don't get shut down. So you keep talking about sports, and we don't have to keep mentioning this COVID thing on the podcast. But it's tough out there. So hopefully everyone stays safe. Hopefully all these athletes stay safe, and hopefully nothing gets shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. We want good things here. So obviously, everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and of course, stay positive even through this all because it is the holiday season. And speaking of which, that wraps up this little edition of the Somewhat Sports Podcast heading into the holidays, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you can follow us at somewhat.sports for our weekly NFL posts and all the like it, which of course you can get to the YouTube channel in the link there, which is somewhat put a space and then sports. And you can listen to all the episodes of this amazing podcast here. Of course, myself, Dame, and Chris, we all want to wish you just happy, Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time with your family. Happy holidays to all. And just, finish off 2021. It's been better than 2020, which is not a high standard to go over. It's been better than 2020, but it's also had its rough patches here. But I think at the end of the day, just gotta stay positive, go into this new year, and let's have a ball. And to enjoy that time, why not listen to the best sports podcast out there, ladies and gentlemen? So thank you all so much for joining us this week, and we will be back next time. See y'all then.